Hi, everyone.
Hello, we want to welcome you to Time for a Difference.
To the
To
difference,
the Difference
makers.
Grab some coffee and join us today. This is a weekly podcast for difference making people living by and using difference making truths to impact the lives of people around us. So today we're going to talk about the difference maker's most important credential they must have with people before they can make a difference. Trust. Trust. Can I trust you? If I can't trust you, why would I let you influence my life? Now, if trust is the goal, how do we get trust?
So, today we're going to look at three very important heart motivations that we must have with people to gain and keep their trust. We will learn the importance of establishing trust with people from the motivation of the love commitment that Christ has for us. That's the word you want to love, is love from the heart commitment that Christ has for us. And so we will learn that importance of how trust is maintained with people by the integrity of our honesty and humility. We will learn the importance of growing trust by warring together against the enemy's attacks on that trust in your relationships. Now, a few years ago, while I was on street mission, I met this retired police officer from Ohio. And the strange thing is that the neighborhood we were in was a pretty tough neighborhood. And he was doing something very unusual, which really caught my attention. He was swinging his golf club on the front yard of his place. So I began a conversation with him, and I found out that he was visiting his daughter. Now, we went through a really extensive, interesting conversation. Policemen are the most interesting people in the world, folks. Don't let that tough demeanor dissuade you from learning from them and talking to them. When I asked him what I could pray for, he surprised me. And he said something very valuable to me. He didn't say, go ahead and pray. He took that moment to define something I gained with him that I was surprised by. He said what he really needed was someone he could trust to check in on his daughter. And how I gained his trust to look after his daughter. A little surprise there. Gained such trust in such a short conversation from him was a gift. Because of this trust in me, every 2 weeks I would stop by the house and talk to his daughter. Interesting thing about his daughter, she showed little interest in my visits and our talks about Jesus. But I kept going over to her house every 2 weeks, checking in on her. And I always would pray Christ's love over her and just telling her how much Jesus loved her, and how important she was and valued she was to him. One day, she answered the door. This time, I got to meet the mother, so now I met the rest of the family. Both of them, Jen and the mother, looked wrecked. And the mother was the first one that said, "This isn't a good time to come here." And then I asked her what was going on, and she said this to her mother and to me, I guess, simultaneously. She said, "I trust you enough to tell you that I had a miscarriage." I couldn't believe it. That all those disinterested visits that I had with her ended up in her trusting me. That day, as I prayed for her, I was blown away by how much Christ did for her and her mother's broken heart. It's amazing. Christ made the difference again.
Let's look at what Jesus taught us about gaining trust with people. So we're going to read from Matthew. Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, "Do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by the earth, for it is his footstool, or by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. And do not swear by your head, For you cannot even make even one hair white or black. All you need to say is simply yes or no. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. So everyone can make a difference with others by building trust with 3 heart motivations. So the first one is everyone can make a difference with others by building trust with a commitment heart motivation. A commitment heart motivation. So we saw in verse 33 and 34, do not break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you have made. But I tell you, do not swear an oath at all.
So when we read this teaching of Jesus, it's pretty clear that he's teaching us not to make promises with people. And if you do, just that one thing, you'll improve your trust relationship with people, okay? However, as difference makers, we need to understand a little bit more of the guts of what he's talking about here so that we understand why we don't make promises with people. So this is what we have to learn. As difference makers, trust with people is the platform that we need to give us access to people's hearts where the difference making happens. So it's the platform for the difference maker. So we must be a bit more forensic on what Jesus is teaching us here about trust to make a difference. Now, why did Jesus emphatically say, do not swear an oath at all? I believe it gives us something that we need to understand about trust. See, we live in a very untrustworthy world. That's a fact of life. But another fact of life is that we all need people in our lives that we know we can trust to help us when we need it.
So how do we find people we can trust? So Jesus warns us about using the method called promise making. So why does he warn us about promise making? Well, it's a natural method that all of us use to find people that we trust. So we think that we can find a trustworthy person by testing them with how well they keep their promises. So if you keep your promise to me, then maybe I'll trust you. So promise keeping essentially means this. If I can get you to make a promise, you have to keep it or else face the consequences that I'm not going to trust you, that I can't trust you. So Jesus knew that this promise-keeping economy would be destructive to the Christian's ability to get trust with people in their difference-making efforts. So why is making promises a dangerous thing? So there's 2 reasons. So first of all, we all have selfish weaknesses that can interfere with our motivations to keep promises. And second of all, because keeping promises assumes a lie that we have power over our lives to keep all of our promises under any circumstances, which we know that's not true.
Let's test these truths. How many of you have broken a promise because of selfish motivations not to do it? How many of you have broken a promise because of an unforeseen obstacle? Come on, raise your hand. Yep, we break our promises. So what is the way we should build trust with people? We must look at what we really are after when we ask people to make promises. That's going to tell you something. What we're actually looking for in our lives is whether this person cares enough about me that they will commit to help me. That's why we do these promises. We're trying to find that trustworthy person. That means rather than looking for promise keepers, we should be looking for committers. And that's what we want to be. I believe this truth is the real issue in today's world. And the very reason Jesus said, don't be a promiser. Now, how many people do you know are in an inappropriate relationship based upon the promise from someone rather than their commitment. This really distorts people. They get promises from people that can't commit. And that's when they have problems. We see this a lot in the single ladies and single men's territory, getting connected to somebody that promises they can't commit. But we want to be better as difference makers in that we want to be people that are known for being committed to people. So when a difference maker meets a person, they must understand that it starts with us to set the parameters of trust with commitment rather than promises. We cannot let people put us in promise relationships because as we said earlier, that trust will eventually blow up and you don't want that to happen. Now, we have to teach people that we are about commitment. So you have to tell them that. Say, no, I'm not going to make you a promise because I'm a commitment person. Meaning I will help anyone. Why? Because Christ's heart-committed motivations to love me has given me Christ's motivation of love to help others. That's how I help others, from Christ's heart motivations. Now, over time, that Christ-hearted commitment with people will earn people's trust that will give you the doorway you need to influence people in difference-making ways.
So everyone can make a difference with others by building trust with integrity, heart motivations. So now we're going to talk about integrity. So in verse 37, it says, all you need to say is simply yes or no. So why is Jesus talking about giving simple yeses or nos in our decisions in life? How does that relate to trust? Have you ever heard something simple like this only to discover that the truth is everything but simple? So getting to the yeses and the nos in good decisions with people we are committed to, that's really not a simple process. I wish Jesus maybe had given us another option, like maybe or maybe not, but he said yes and no. But our commitment to others has to be trusted. And so we can't have those maybes. We have to say yes or no answers. They have to be given with an integrity, heart motivation that can be trusted. So that means we must know how to make definitive Christ-hearted decisions. So how do we do that? We must become responsible to ask God for our decisions. Asking God about your decision will always come from an integrity of heart motivation. Decisions involve an honesty test with God. And so this honesty thing, to know about your decision, is that you need God's help. That we need God's help in every decision that we make. And I think he has a better decision-making process than I do. So
yeah, he has a little bit more control over the answers, doesn't he?
Yeah, for sure. So integrity of heart tells us that asking God for help requires humility. And so if we're in pride will always tell us you can do it without asking God. But humility tells God, I need your help. I don't know which decision to make. Which, by the way, it's an irresistible invitation to God for his empowering help.
And don't we want that? When you ask God for help, God can't resist that invitation. Just to simply asking him. Now, how many simple looking decisions have you made that became anything but simple? And finally, it became painful enough where you finally cried out to God for help. Help! Avoid the pain and ask God's help before you make decisions with people. Ask God's help. To practically define your decisions from God, I would use 3 important questions. Very important questions, folks. God answers will give you a hint of what is expected from you. So not only to ask God for help, but listen for God's answers, okay? You don't ask questions from God and not listen for his answers. Question number 1, let's get to it. Is this decision something Jesus would do? Very basic, right? We just a lot of times just want to pop off decisions in life and we don't ask the very basic question, especially when we're dealing with people who want to keep their trust. Is this decision that they're talking about is something Jesus would ask them to do? And then sometimes have to train the person that you're trying to make a difference with and say, is this something Jesus would want you to do? We've seen a lot of bad ideas just absolutely crash after that. And thank God that they have crashed, that I didn't have to spend my difference-making time just repairing. So it's this question. It's simply going to allow you to discern if your decisions will honor God. Let's go to question number 2 that we ask God. What commitment does God want me to make with this decision? In other words, you're praying for the other person, but you're saying, how does God want me to oversee this decision? Question number 3 gets us in even deeper. And you can see each of these questions goes a little bit deeper because question number 3 says, what is God asking me to do with this decision? In other words, a person might be making a decision, but God may say, I need you to be in the middle of this decision. they're going to do some dropping things, or they just need powerful support. So you may have to just say, yeah, that's a great idea. I'd like to come with you and be part of that process. So how is God asking me to be involved in this decision? Okay, very important. Now, if you want to be a good difference maker and have people trust you, you must have the integrity of heart motivations to find God's direction in your decisions.
So everyone can make a difference with others by building trust with a discerning heart motivation. So verse 37, Jesus said, anything beyond yes or no, this comes from the evil one. So I wish that our difference-making efforts with people would always have perfect or at least predictable results. But the fact is, most of our efforts to make a difference with people will bring a spiritual test of trust. Notice that we said a spiritual test of trust. Because this is true, you will never be prophetic enough to know about all these spiritual enemy attacks before they happen. So what can we do? Frankly, it's surprising to me that we would believe at the outset with people that the enemy he's going to allow us to move forward with our difference-making efforts.
Yeah, the enemy is always going to attack your difference-making efforts.
It's pretty naive of us to think that he wouldn't.
Yes. Here is a good question that will help you to discern what the enemy's plans are in attack. And this is such an important question. If you want to ever be able to get trust, this is a very important question. Okay? Because what is the enemy after? You're trying to make a difference with a person, right? And we said that trust is that platform of the difference maker. So what is it that the enemy attacks to be able to stop that difference-making process? Well, he wants to break that trust. So here's the question. I'm going to repeat it twice to you because it's the most important sentence that I've said today. Here's the statement. What part of trust that I have with this person is the enemy attacking? That's what I look at. What trust is the enemy attacking in my relationship with this person as I'm trying to make a difference to him? So again, what part of trust that I have with this person is the enemy attacking? Because if he knows if he breaks that trust, the difference-making relationship will really fall apart. This is why Jesus said anything beyond yes or no is of the enemy. The enemy is always after that. He's always after the everything. The enemy creates the anything to break our yes and no decisions. Practically, no matter how spiritual immature the person that you're working with, the last thing you want to do is to take care of the situation yourself because I'm this great difference maker. No. Now, why would we not do that? Because these are the times when you're under warfare. Here, listen careful. These are the times where greater trust is grown. These are the times that you must now walk with people through the experience of spiritual warfare. It's so important. I am so thankful that I had people in the past that walked with me through spiritual warfare. You know, that they saw this coming. We were in the midst of this battle and they said, we're going to sit down with you and go through this with you. And then afterwards, those are people that I'm eternally indebted to, okay? So know this, spiritual warfare is the difference-making curriculum that you need people to excel in. See, it's not just some inspirational idea that you have that brings change to people, right? It's the ability to handle the spiritual realities that are in their situation that are creating their problems. So spiritual warfare is the difference-making curriculum that people need to excel in if they're going to find the abundant life that Christ has for them. Teach them and stand with people against the enemy's attacks and thoughts. How? Teach people to look to Scripture and pray. Just become crazy prayer people. I pray over that. Oh, I'm a little nervous. I pray over your nervousness. Oh, I'm just a little hesitant. I pray over that hesitancy. You have to do that. Why? What's the other alternative? Well, your mind is just clouded with all these negative thoughts and these uncertainties and these fears and these insecurities. Difference makers need to stay close and connected in these times. These are the times that your greatest trust with people are formed. Sometimes right after spiritual warfare, I'll find people that I talk to them about certain things and they're just like putting up that wall. But once you go through a war with them, they're going, okay, man, I know the one thing that you saw me at my ugliest and messiest, and you still love me, and we walk through that together, so I trust you. And so, again, what trust purchases for you in your ability to influence people. So let's review what we learned about trust today. We have learned the importance of establishing trust with people from the motivation of the love committed heart that Christ has for us. We have learned how trust is maintained with people by the integrity of our hearts with honesty and humility. We have learned today that trust grows with people when you stay close and you war together against the enemy's attacks on that trust in your relationship.
So we want to give you a big thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us. And I would ask that if you like this podcast, would you please consider joining our community and hit the subscribe tab. You can find our full podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and YouTube. And you can also find and follow our daily clips on Facebook, Instagram, and X. We'd love to hear from you. Please join our community.
If you have a heart to be part of our difference-making podcast and outreach, please consider a donation at our Buy Us a Coffee link below.
So let me give you a trust challenge this week. This week, I want to challenge you to find a person that you will make a Christ-hearted commitment to and begin a journey of trust with them.